This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. And now, here's your host, Itamar Shafir.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we talk with successful marketing experts about ways to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Our guest today is a content marketing maven. He is an Amazon best-selling author of Content Inc., Killing Marketing, and Epic Content Marketing, which was named must-read business book by Fortune magazine. He has founded 4 companies, including content creation news site The Tilt, as well as Content Marketing Institute. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Content Council. His podcast series, This Old Marketing with Robert Rose, has millions of downloads in over 150 countries. I'm excited to say hello to Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you? It's great to be here. How are you today?
I'm awesome.
Good.
And I'm super excited to talk to you. You have so much experience. And I'm also excited to talk with the person who kind of coined the term content marketing, right?
Well, I can't take full credit for it. People say that, Joe is the one that started talking about content marketing. We could probably take credit for popularizing it. I started using that term in content marketing in 2001 because I was trying to sell custom content solutions and marketers wouldn't pay attention to me. So I came up like, well, custom media is not working. Custom publishing is not working. Well, maybe we should call it something different, like marketing, like search marketing and direct marketing. So everything's for marketers. You got to make it simple. So he started calling it content marketing, and then really started to work on that term and popularize it in 2007, 2008, 2009, when we launched Content Marketing Institute. There are some, if you go back into the Googles and go back into the late 90s, there are some people that used the term content marketing, so I can't take credit for the first usage, but probably making it popular. So I have to apologize for anybody that hates that term. Sorry. It was the best term for us. Because now it seems to have caught on. So yeah. We'll take it.
So talking about this, how did you get into content marketing?
Yeah, I started in publishing. So this is in 2000. And I was lucky enough to get into, the company was called Penton Media, large international business-to-business media company. When I joined, they had about 50 different vertical brands, from machine design to heating and air conditioning and industrial engineering, all kinds of different things. And our department that I became a project manager in was called custom media. So instead of selling advertising like most every other department, basically we had magazines. So people sold advertising on those magazines, or we sold the booths at trade shows, very, very traditional media company. But we were charged with selling storytelling projects. So we would go to companies like Microsoft, and I would try to sell them a quarterly magazine that would be directed just to their audience. And then that turned into webinar series, and that turned into just, blogs that we would help them create blogs so they could build an audience, build a better relationship with that audience, and hopefully sell more to that audience. And boy, who knew that was going to be a thing? Because as I saw Google pop up, and then we saw Facebook, and then we saw Twitter, and I just had this feeling, it wasn't rocket science, but I guess I was just at the right place at the right time. I said, oh my God, companies are going to have to spend a ton of money and a ton of resources on telling their own stories and creating content in all different forms in order to get attention, in order to build an audience. And because there were all these different channels that they could go in, and they didn't have any information at all about themselves, or they were just basically just product information. That's what we found out when I was going and doing sales pitches to these big business to business companies. They were creating all sorts of product and service content, but they weren't creating any content that was educational, informative, truly valuable for their audience. So that's what we would go in, we would teach them how to do that. And then in 2007, I said, oh, this is going to be a thing. Created what became Content Marketing Institute. And we were basically charged with educating marketers on how to do this thing. And then we had our big event, Content Marketing World, which we launched in 2007. We launched a magazine, all kinds of stuff, did training, consulting. So that was it. I mean, it was just a natural progression of, oh my God, here's this new area. Marketers don't know anything about how to do this. We know a lot about interruption. We don't know a lot about publishing. So we basically taught marketers the art of publishing.
Yeah. So talking about, I just want to put it in scope for everybody that is listening. Content marketing includes so many things, right? You can say podcast marketing, you can say webinars, you can say articles, you can say, social posting. When would you define that it goes away and goes, for example, into marketing? Because Facebook boost, you can boost a post. It's still content marketing, but it's advertising as well. Or do you even put that line somewhere?
Yeah, so those things are part of a content marketing strategy. So there's a lot of tactics. You could do, I'm promoting my podcast. That's a tactic. But if I'm saying, what's my content marketing strategy? So look higher level, and you could say, okay, well, who's the audience I'm trying to target? So and maybe in this case, who's my customer? And what do I want my customer to do? This is just basic marketing. I could use advertising. I could go to a trade show. I could use direct mail. You could do a lot of different things. But if I'm using content marketing, I'm saying, okay, I want my audience to feel a certain way about me, about what we have to sell, about what we do. And if I do that really well, they'll come to know, like, and trust us. And if they know, like, and trust us, they'll end up buying more stuff. So it's really thinking big picture. And then if you say, okay, I want to build an audience just like a publisher would, but instead of a media company selling sponsorships and advertising, we're trying to sell more products, sell more services, work on our loyalty, maybe create higher yield, create more valuable customers. Those are content marketing strategic goals or key performance indicators. So what we want to do is say, okay, does the organization have a strategy to build an audience? And what does that mean? And when I say build an audience, you're building an asset. You are really building an asset that over a long period of time can work for the organization, because it's not just, hey, here's an advertisement. I'm going to put this in the magazine, or I'm going to do a trade show, and I've got to get return off of that initiative immediately. But if I create a blog post, I'll give you an example. I wrote a blog post in 2007 as part of our strategy at Content Marketing Institute. It was called, What is Content Marketing? Well, that What is Content Marketing post that I wrote almost 15 years ago now still gets between 500 and 1,000 people a day.
Wow.
A day going to that post that still generates all sorts of business for the organization. Now, that's just one piece of content, but it was part of a broader strategy. That's where I call it an asset, because if you use content really well, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a blog post, whether it's an ongoing event that people want to go to every year, you're creating assets for the organization. It's not an expense. And then you can basically have return from those year after year after year.
So let me ask you, I think, what can potentially be a difficult question. A lot of the listeners are starting up or small agencies. We're not talking about big organizations with big budgets or big content teams. And the marketing information ecosystem, as you know very well, has a lot of very good content contributors. Just to name a few, you have HubSpot, you have you guys, you have Neil Patel, you have a lot of people. And now I'm the lonely agency, and I really want, I know some stuff. I want to provide good content. I don't have a lot of time, don't have a lot of budget, but I want to get noticed. What do I do?
Yep. Well, first of all, there's been too much content and information out there since the dawn of the printing press. So if you're an agency person listening to this, don't get overwhelmed. There's always been too much content. There's always been so many competitors. So we always find a way to break through. So how do you do that? We talk about this in my book, Content Inc. You go really small. And that's the advantage for a small player. And that's why you see all these amazing examples coming out right now from people with no resources, because they find one particular pain point that one audience has, and they focus on that better than anyone else in the world. And we call this the finding your content tilt. It's basically, you find an area of differentiation on the web that you can break through all the clutter. So what do you do? How do you go into that? So you find out and say, okay, well, who's my audience? List their pain points, what keeps them up at night, and then focus on an area that nobody focuses on. So for right now, with our, launched a new business called The Tilt, we're focusing on this area of content entrepreneurship. Everyone's talking about content creators, but nobody's talking about how content creators can build a business model and actually become financially successful and have a successful exit and those types of things. Nobody talks about the operational side of that. We're saying, oh, good. No, HubSpot's not talking about it. Neil Patel's not talking about it. We're going to go into that area and be the leading expert. So yeah, it takes a couple weeks, a couple months, meet with your team and say, okay, here's our audience for what we sell, our services, but here's a little area that's forgotten and nobody's talking about it. And then once you figure out what that content tilt is, then you say, all right, well, what's the best way to build that audience, to express that in storytelling form, whatever it might be. So you might say, okay, we think the best way with what we're good at and where our audience is at online, maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a weekly YouTube series. Maybe it's every other week email newsletter. Maybe it's a roadshow event. Maybe it's a webinar series, right? Maybe it's an Instagram stories, whatever it is, right? It could be, it's a Twitch channel. It could be anything, but I would just recommend, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. A lot of agencies will say, oh, we got to be everywhere our customers are at online. Well, that's not true. You can't be great everywhere when you're starting. You can be great everywhere when you're the Financial Times, when you're BuzzFeed, and you have all these resources, but not when you have limited resources. So you focus on being great in one thing. So pick that one thing. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be on social media and whatnot, spreading that around, but just pick one main initiative. Be great at that. It takes, we know, between 9 and 18 months to really build an audience where then you can start diversifying. So pick your tilt and then focus on one area and then go to town.
Excellent advice.
And that's it. And people hate that, right? Because they want to do all the things. But I'm like, you can't do all the things and be great. So focus on being great is just one thing.
So that's an excellent advice. And let's add to that also the fact that a lot of small agencies or any small entrepreneurs that is not a content creator, meaning they're doing something else and then they want to add content to their marketing, have a very limited time, right? What would you say would be the matrix between time investment to effect, or if we say content pieces to effect, meaning the minimum viable content production that you need to do to create a change in your business?
Sure. Well, that's a very difficult question because it really depends on what you're doing. So I'll give you an example. If you're doing so I'll give you an example. So there's a YouTuber called Matthew Patrick. Matt Pat runs game theory website, food theory website. He's a multimillionaire now. He's one of the most popular YouTubers ever. He spends 100 hours a week with his team doing one YouTube show. So think about how much time that is. I mean, by the way, and when you watch his YouTubes, you'll say, wow, there's some of the best out there. Or I have a podcast called Content Inc. It's a weekly 5-minute podcast. I spend 30 minutes a week on it. Okay. So let's just put it in perspective, right? What are we talking about here? What are you trying to do? So he has gone all the way in figuring this thing out. He's differentiated himself. He's the best of the best. He's putting the resources in. I'm just like, okay, I've got this small thing I'm doing. So there's that differentiation because doing a podcast is much easier than doing a show or an event or a magazine or anything like that. The second thing is that figure out what you're good at, what you love to do as the agency person, as a marketing person, as a content creator, and outsource everything else. So when we started Content Marketing Institute in 2007, I created content, but I had to run the business. I'm like, well, I don't have time. I've got to go sell things. I've got to put food on the table. What am I going to do? Well, I think by the time we were 2012, 2013, we had something like 100 different freelancers and contractors working with us on different things. I had somebody working on keywords. I had somebody working on editing and copywriting. I had somebody working on production. I had somebody working on the events. I had somebody working on layout and design. So we had all those things. So just like an agency does, I mean, same, you have contractors each, but you don't hire these people full time, whatever makes the most sense. So you do the same thing for that. So you can spend time on the business. So I'd say just make a list. What are the things you're good at? What are the things you like to do? What are the things you're not good at? What are the things you hate doing? Outsource all those things and figure that out. So I wish I could give you a better answer and say, it's going to take 10 hours a week to build an audience. But I can tell you time. We know from a time standpoint, it takes a minimum of about 9 hours for most organizations to start building a minimum viable audience of someone, an audience they can monetize in some way, see some return off of.
9 months. Yeah.
About 9 months, 9 to 18 months. If you do something consistently is key. So if you have a podcast, it's an every Friday podcast. You deliver every Friday. You do all the things. You do all the promotion things. You do the keyword research. You do everything you should do to be found. You do the partner relationships. It should take you between 9 and 18 months until your organization says, we got something here. We're starting to see an impact on the business.
Wow, that's actually a perfect answer. I wasn't expecting an exact matrix. So, okay, let's add to that pile something that it also comes from a different direction of how is content marketing going to look like in a few years. We see tools coming out on the market like Copy AI and many others. I don't know, I've seen an influx in the past 6 months.
Yep.
There is something, because I think it's an API that was released by IBM or something. I'm not sure. But I tried some. They're good. They're not good enough yet to say, okay, I'm going to write a book or I'm going to create something from scratch that is very, very creative. But it seems like they're going there. How do you think in 5 years we'll be able to say, okay, I want to write something about ABCD, talk to them, and we'll get an article?
Well, is that possible today? Yes. And I know a little bit about this because one of my good friends is Paul Reitzer, and he runs the Marketing AI Institute. And so I ask him all the time, I'm like, what's going on? And I gave him an example. So I said, Paul, I wrote a novel a couple years ago called The Will to Die. And I said, I don't want to write the second version of this. Can I have AI write this for me? And he said, absolutely, AI can do it. They need 10,000 examples. I said, if you can put in 10,000 examples into AI and use OpenAI and figure this thing out, a book can be created. It's going to be perfect, whatever. No, but it'll use the 10,000 example. I said, I don't have 10,000 examples. I have one. He said, come back when you have 10,000 more and we can figure this. So that's where we're at. I think in the next 5 years.
This podcast is brought to you by Umbrella. Have an agency? Check out umbrellaus.com to grow it today.
The mundane things that you're doing with a lot of the editing, a lot of the copywriting, the things that are small tasks that can be duplicated, that you can see a computer doing, those are all going to be automated. Mm-hmm. I think you'll be able to write an article and you'll get a perfectly edited article back in the next couple of years because they said, okay, great. This is my tone. This is what I'm going for. This is my style. And they'll take all that and learn, and that'll be it. We know that in the future, I don't think it's 5 years though. Things move so fast, who knows? But in some time into the future, yes, absolutely. You'll have content that could completely be automated. I don't know what that's going to mean. All I know right now is that there are tools out there that in parts of your process that should be automated. So I think that we are, as marketers, we should look at all the things that we're doing. And like you did, go out and say, okay, is there a thing out there that can duplicate that for me, that can do that thing for me? But is it going to take over the stories humans are human because they can tell stories. Well, we can tell stories. That's the difference. And we remember these stories and we share these stories on and on and on. So we take that away. What are we going to be? I don't know.
We need to go higher.
It's in some way. It's going to be crazy. But yeah, unlike you, like every day I'm like, oh, there's another AI tool and there's another one and there's another one and everything's automated. I don't know what that means. Right now, look and see if it can improve your business. And then I guess in 10 years, we'll have to wait to see if we have to do any kind of content creation at all.
If we have to work at all. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So in the meantime, well, we do have to create content from all the materials you have out there, from the Content Marketing Institute, from your podcast, from your books. If you have to choose one of them for a digital marketing agency owner that is listening to this, to start with, to get the best effect for their time, what would you recommend?
The best is hard to say because I could make the case for anything. I could make the case right now and say, oh, you should really focus on doing TikTok. And I could say, oh man, what an opportunity. There's nobody doing in your industry doing a Twitch stream. What if you did a daily Twitch stream, or you did or oh my God. I mean, I'm totally in love with print. I mean, there's nothing that's good being sent through the post right now. I mean, you could totally create an amazing print experience and go. So I could give you all of them. But if I was to have to choose, so you're making me choose, there's two. It's probably number one would be an email newsletter, which a lot of people would say, what are you kidding? And I'll tell you why. And a lot of the stuff has to do, as we're talking about this a little while back, you had Facebook go down for half a day. And you have all the social platforms that they have the control over their platforms, and we are just users. We're just the product on those platforms. And if I build an audience on YouTube and somebody subscribes to it, is it my audience? No, it's their audience. Those things concern me. So you have to do two things. If you build an audience on something like Facebook, you have to have a rent to own strategy. You have to say, I'm building my audience on YouTube, but at the end of the day, I don't have any of that first party data. I don't have those direct connections. What do? You have to create an email newsletter. So that's why when we launched our new company, The Tilt, we said, okay, well, we're going to just go into email newsletters. So we said, we're going to start with the email newsletter. It's harder because you got to do all the things to promote it, because there's no audience there. That's why we go to Facebook, and that's why we go to Instagram, and that's why we go to Twitter, because there's already an audience there, and we have to find that audience and then monetize that audience. But I want to start with something where I have the most control over it. Number one, number one, email newsletter. Number two, podcast. So the second thing is a podcast. I love that because if somebody subscribes to my podcast, whatever type of app that they use to listen to that podcast, and they subscribe to it, they will get it. They will see it in their feed. I can't be sure about that in Facebook. I can't be sure about that in LinkedIn. I can't be sure about that in YouTube, but I can be sure about it right now for podcasting. So number one, email newsletter. Number two, podcasting, because of the control. At the same time, like I said, you have to do a lot of promotion activities, a lot of partner activities to make sure you get that out there, do the right things so you can build that audience. So it's tough. It's one or the other, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to go on a platform that I don't control at all. I'll build that audience, but then what do I have once I build that audience? I'm really nervous. I have a million people subscribed to my YouTube, but what do I have as a business? Not much. You have to move that audience at some point, or, oh, I'm going to start this e-newsletter. I'm starting from nothing. Yeah. And I've got to go out and find that audience.
So how would I go out and find that audience?
Well, so basically what I've learned over 20 plus years of doing this is whatever you create. So if you create an email newsletter, the best place to market that is in other email newsletters. If you create a podcast, and you know this because you have a podcast, what's the best place? How do you best market a podcast? By being on other podcasts. Yeah. So you do the same. Well, if you have a YouTube channel, how do I market it to get people to find it on YouTube? Well, you better partner with other YouTubers and figure. So that's the best way to do it. So if I'm on, and we do this with our own email newsletter at The Tilt. So it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, who's our audience? Our audience are content creators, content entrepreneurs. Well, who else has email newsletters going to that audience? Well, here's a list of 40. Okay, we're going to do a partnership deal with everyone. We're going to do promotion swaps. We might do some advertising and promotion on some of these things. We might do other partnerships we haven't thought of before. It's the same thing with podcasts. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this person on my podcast because they have another podcast. They can promote it. Those types of things happen. And that's with anything. It doesn't mean that you can't promote an email newsletter on a podcast. That's fine. But you got to look at the behavior. The consumer behavior is already happening. They're already used to that thing. So getting the big stretch to just adding one more thing is not a huge thing, as if you said, oh, or you and I are talking and I'm like, okay, I'm going to promote my Twitch channel, my Twitch stream, but none of this audience is even on Twitch. So what do I do? I'm in trouble there. So that's the best way to do it.
Okay, perfect. So if our listeners, the agencies, want to learn more about content marketing tricks, tips, how to do it, would you say Tilt is the best way to go?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's all we do. That's our whole goal. So basically we do 2 email newsletters a week. Talking about email newsletter, we do 2 email newsletters a week. Tuesday and Friday, we send it out. They're long emails because we don't want you to have to click through. And we've got one purely educational article every issue. We cover about 10 to 15 news items, like things in content creation that you need to know about. And then we cover 2 case studies every issue. And it's a lot of content that the team puts out. But, you know, we're just trying to say, hey, like if you're an agency, so we cover some agencies sometimes, say this agency's doing this great stuff in content creation. They've been able to not only sell more services, they've been able to sell sponsorship or create an event out of this, or sell paid subscriptions to this email newsletter. They have all kinds of stuff, because my take is, you're not a media company, you're not an agency, you're not a content creator. You can do all the different revenue channels. If you create an audience, you don't just have to say, okay, well, I'm creating this audience just to sell more agency services. That could be your number one KPI. But you could monetize that in multiple ways. We just did some research at the Tilt, and we found out that the average content creator, the best ones in the world, have 4 different revenue generation sources from their audience. So they might have sponsorship, they might sell more products and services, they might sell subscriptions, they might do events, whatever the case is, we're seeing that. So that's the opportunity. You can monetize it lots of different ways.
And one of the things that I noticed about the Tilt is that you have tokenized to a degree.
To a degree is an understatement. We've tokenized that. Yeah. So basically we have our own social, some people call it a creator coin, community coin, social token, but we have a social token. It's crypto. And what we do is, we've integrated it into our entire ecosystem so that we can create our own little mini economy. So what happens is, if you subscribe to the Tilt, we'll send you $5 worth of Tilt coin. If you refer somebody to it, you get $5 more. If you want to activate your membership and have different membership levels to get exclusive content, you go to our Discord channel, which is our community chat channel, and you can level up. You can say, oh, I've got 5 Tilt coins, so I get into the Tilt 5 club, and then you get an exclusive piece of content every month. And then we're launching merchandise next month, so you'll be able to buy your favorite t-shirt, favorite sweatshirt with Tilt coin that you've earned by doing other stuff, and you can buy it as well. And then you get all kinds of discounts and things for having different levels. And I've never seen anything like the loyalty that comes from people that own, because of course, there's a monetary component to it. We launched Tilt coin at 36 cents in March of 2021, and now it's at $36. So the people that got in early and bought in and referred all those people from the start, because when the initial subscribers came in and you referred somebody to come into the Tilt, you were getting like 2, 3, 4 Tilt for every time you were doing that. Now you get like a small percentage. So there's people that have quite a valuable
I can have like a 2-hour conversation with you just on that.
We should come back and talk about that. Right. I'm all in. I mean, I'm all in on crypto, creator coins, NFTs as a whole new model of the content creation. I think it's like an NFT, I think could be like the greatest opt-in subscription ever created. But a lot of people don't think about it that way. They just think about it, oh, is that art? And why are people paying so much for that art? I look about it different. It's a really great way to have a relationship with the customer. And it just depends on how you use that on the blockchain. So we could talk about it forever. Anytime you want. I'm ready.
Look, I think there are a lot of business owners as well that would love the benefit of your experience with it, because it's very, very new. People don't know how to address it. And there is endless opportunity here, but it also comes with fear, regulation, what to do. Is it not points? Do I get, what does it? So, okay, I won't go into it because it's a rabbit hole, but
I mean, so my recommendation to that point, we're not going to go into the whole thing, but take some money that you can afford to lose in crypto and get some, whether that's Bitcoin or Ethereum on the crypto side. If you would like to, if anybody listening to this wants to, figure out, how do I figure out this creator coin social token thing? I'll give you some for free so you can email me at jp@thetilt.com. and say you listen to this podcast, and I'll send you, and I'll say, okay, sign up here, and I'll send you some free tilt coin. And then you can figure it out. You can say, oh, there it is. And here's my crypto address. And then you can get, there's all kinds. I think I'm one of 300 different content creators on the rally.io platform. It's just one platform. There's lots of platforms that you could build your creator coin on top of. But the thing is, it's like with NFTs, the same thing. People don't get NFTs. I'm like, look, go get a MetaMask wallet. Fund that with some money that you can afford to lose. Buy some ETH on the Ethereum blockchain, and buy something stupid that doesn't cost you very much, that you might like the look of it. And good, you bought your first NFT. And then you could see the process. And then once you go through that, you're not as scared anymore. And you're like, oh, this is not so overwhelming. It's just a different way to purchase. And that's what we're seeing. A lot of people don't realize that there's this whole economy happening on the web, backed mostly by ETH, that nobody's even realized that's happening. And there's a whole other world that's using fiat currency. And there's this whole separation. And the separation is this, you talk about this fear in the middle. Well, the fear in the middle is just not knowing. So just get involved in it. And then, just like I got involved in 2017. I'm like, what is this? I got a Coinbase wallet. I figured it out. And then I went down the rabbit hole of creator coins and what they can do for a community. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. So there you go.
Guys, you heard it here. You can get free coins. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want people to try it. I mean, I am actively trying to get people involved in crypto. I want everyone, because social tokens is an alt. I mean, those are altcoins. That's a different conversation. But let's just say crypto in general, specifically something like a Bitcoin. I want people to get involved in that, because I'm all for non-sovereign economy. I like the computer algorithm that sets up the math of the currency behind Bitcoin. And I like it that there's no company and there's no government that can come in and say, I'm going to change that monetary policy. That's why I love it. I'm in love with that. You can see it. You can see this is the monetary policy. It's limited to 21 million coins. Yeah. Done. So, but this is not a creator crypto show. So we probably need to be done talking about that.
Yeah. So, but I will invite you again. I really want to go and talk about it, and specifically everything you're doing with the tilt. But before we go into the last segment of the podcast, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Orange Effect Foundation.
Oh, thank you. Sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So that's our little passion. My wife and I started the Orange Effect Foundation, basically started the roots of it in 2007. We became a not-for-profit in 2014. And all we do is we raise money to help children who can't afford speech therapy get that speech therapy. So most of the kids that we work with are on the autism spectrum in some way. It's personal to our family. So my oldest was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and he was nonverbal, 3 years old. What do? We got him play and speech therapy with a bunch of wonderful, amazing speech therapists. And by 6 years old, he was able to go to regular school with a tutor. By 8 years old, he was able to not go to regular school and not have a tutor. Everyone could understand him. And now he's at university. Wow. He's doing great. And he's just, he's so, and the reason why that happened, of course, he worked very hard, but the reason why that happened was the speech therapy part. And what I have learned in the process is a lot of families can't afford that. So we are that intermediary that comes in, we raise money, and then we find the families out there that really need that. So if this is something that touches your heart, theorangeeffect.org is the address. And we're get involved, look at what we're doing, donate, whatever the case is. And right now, I think we've got 250 kids that have grants through us that we're funding. And everybody does their little thing. It's just one small thing that there's all kinds of great research going on in autism, but there's not a lot of people helping. Once you have it, you need speech therapy, you can't afford it, insurance doesn't cover it, what do you do? That's what we do at Orange Effect. Thank you for letting me talk about that, by the way.
My pleasure, and I think it's super important, and I really applaud you for doing this. Takes time, takes dedication, and A lot of people want to do something, but not everybody do. And I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
So the last part of the podcast is a quick Q&A,
Sure.
rapid fire Q&A. The questions are in no way edgy, but if you feel any of them are, just say pass, okay?
Okay, you got it.
Did you get along with your parents growing up?
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Do you have a pet?
No.
That was a big no. That was a heavy
Well,
no.
we have in the past, but right at this moment, no pet.
How old were you when your first kid was born?
I was 28.
When do you wake up?
Generally around 6 a.m.
When do you go to bed?
Between 10 and 11.
Ideal vacation?
Before the pandemic, it was a cruise. Probably still is. I love seeing many cities in a week span, and a great way to do that is a cruise, of course. Cruise safely.
Are you a man of faith?
Yes.
Excellent, Joe. Thank you very, very much for being on the show. Your answers, your information was excellent. I'm sure a lot of listeners have been helped by what you said. And guys, go check out joepulizzi.com. That's JoePulizzi.com. From there, you can get to all the content sections that Joe has. I think the Tilt for sure, right? The CMI and his books, which are amazing. And thank you. You're awesome.
No, this is great. I'm looking forward to our next show on Creator Coins.
You bet you. I'm going to hold you to it.
Absolutely. I'm in.
Cool. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Your host has been Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com.